Hi, and welcome to another episode of She Leads Biotech, the podcast where we celebrate the achievements of women in the life sciences. Today's guest is someone who's never taken the conventional route, even when the conventional route would have been impressive enough. She grew up immersed in medicine, the daughter of a physician, spending weekends in hospitals and labs. She followed that path all the way through medical school, completed a PhD in neuroimaging, trained in radiology, and built a deep understanding of the brain. But along the way, she realized something. She didn't just want to treat patients one by one. She wanted to change medicine at scale. So she made a bold pivot from academic medicine into industry, stepping into consulting at McKinsey with no formal business training, then moving into biotech, where she built cross-functional teams, evaluated groundbreaking gene therapy opportunities, and sharpened the skills that would eventually prepare her to lead. Today, she brings that scientific depth, strategic clarity, and relentless drive to innovation as she leads a company focused on transforming treatment in neuroscience. So please welcome the CEO at Brenig Therapeutics, Megan McGill. Megan, good afternoon.
Sharon, good afternoon to you.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm actually calling in from my apartment in New York with a
Ah,
lot of back.
okay. Yeah. Welcome to New York.
Yeah.
I live literally just a little bit outside New York City. So just over the Queen's border, and there seems to be a lot more trees and things in close proximity. So noise doesn't carry quite as much as it does in the city. But I do feel your pain of the noise that's in New York. But it's all part of living in the experience, isn't it?
All part of the charm.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time out to spend some time with us today. I did a very rough look through your bio, and goodness me, you've done so much. But how did it start for you from doctor to consultant to biotech specialist to CEO? What was the start? Is it something you always knew that you were going to take as a topic, or?
Well, I guess maybe I should start kind of from the beginning. I grew up, my mom is a doctor. She's an endocrinologist at WashU. And so, I grew up in hospitals all the time, spent a lot of weekends there, in the library, copying manuscripts and cleaning bottles in the lab. And, it's just kind of where we were as kids. And my
Yep.
mom is also pretty passionate about medicine. So often, dinner table conversations, turned to, weird patient diagnoses. So it was just very much, part of my world, I guess.
Right.
And but I went to college and I thought, okay, well, I'll start as pre-med. Everyone says they're pre-med, and when I find something I like better, then I'll just switch to that. And I was actually a music major as well in college.
Okay.
But I actually, decided I just kind of fell in love with it. I started studying neuroscience, really, really interested in the brain. I think it's fascinating, and so I continued as pre-med and went from there and, went to medical school and started medical school. So that's where it kind of all began. And, I started doing medicine and then actually after my third year of medical school, actually joined the PhD program. So then I was on the PhD and really interested in the research and, what can you discover that's new and study the brain. So I did my PhD in neuroimaging. And so I started a PhD. It was fascinating. Studied brain networks using MRI. So did my classwork in MR physics and, really developing and understanding the tools in order to understand the brain better. And, it's fascinating. We really don't, it's very hard to study the brain. It's very hard to treat diseases of the brain. And, it's this organ that doesn't move. You don't see anything happening, but actually it controls all aspects of your life.
Yeah. And that's the thing, I guess, isn't it? Because if you play around with the brain to try and fix a part of it, you don't
Right.
know what damage you could do to another part of the brain that affects some other function in the body.
Absolutely. I mean, brain controls your movement, um, involuntary actions within your body, cognition, emotion, memory. I mean, it's fascinating. It's cool,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's not part of it all. My dog trying to join us.
I love an extra guest. Oh, look.
This
What's his, is it a he or a she?
she, I have two of them. They're sisters.
Oh, that's so adorable.
This one is named Pi.
Pie.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. As in apple or as in a numerical topic?
We're math people around
Of
here.
course, that was it. I knew that when I first asked it, but I thought, no, okay. So what's the sister's name?
Leela,
Oh, okay.
named by my son. He named her after his first crush
Okay.
from Futurama. So anyway,
I'm learning so much more.
I know. You're getting the full story.
So
So
you
good.
did your PhD
Right.
studying the brain. Fascinating. I mean, I'm fascinated by anything
Yeah.
that goes on with the brain as well.
Yeah.
Then what?
And then, so I finished PhD, finished the MD, started residency. I did my first year of residency at Sloan Kettering as a transition year, and then I went into radiology, which was a really kind of a natural extension from my research. And I was really excited at, I did all of, what we now call AI, but, creating these huge data sets in order to analyze, you know, huge, like, compilations of data to understand the brain better rather than, sort of generate images and try to look at them and squint your eyes and go, the left side looks bigger than the right side.
Yeah.
And so I stayed at NYU for my residency. Really fantastic radiology department there. But I realized, even though I love clinical medicine, what I was really interested in was the innovation in medicine and the ability to do research and lead generation of knowledge, not just treating patients. Not that's just. But, I think that's one of the really cool things about medicine. I think everyone in medicine is driven by this North Star to really positively impact people's lives in an extraordinary way, an extraordinarily compelling way. And you can do that through direct patient contact, and you can also do that by playing a role in creating new therapies, being part of a larger ecosystem. And I don't think it's obvious to a lot of people who go to medical school. I mean, you go to medical school to become a doctor. And, I realized for me, what I was really interested in was this innovation aspect. How can you touch, broad aspects of the population, not just individuals one on one? And so I decided, it was really probably better for me to switch, leave academic medicine and go towards industry because I felt like there was a lot of innovation happening there. I mean, this kind of, did not sit well with my mother. She was like, what? How are you? Why are you leaving medicine, after doing an MD and a PhD and residency and all of this work to then, sort of pivot and go in another direction? Um,
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to have been at the dinner table when that conversation took place.
yeah,
I
no.
would have, I'd have been like, oh, look at the time. I really must go.
Doing what?
So from that, you went to McKinsey.
Yeah. So, I decided that I wanted to take this pivot, but didn't really know how to do that. And I actually get a lot of calls now from physicians who are interested in something similar, but it's not exactly clear how do you take that next step. I had zero business training. I knew nothing. I spent my entire life studying science. But I was too old. I had a child to support at that point. I'm sure we'll get into that. But I couldn't go to business school. I already did so much school. But I spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people. I reached out to a ton of people, and they would put me in touch with other people just to try to get advice. How did you get into what you're doing? What are different paths? What are next steps? And I think what emerged to me were sort of two distinct paths. One was maybe more finance driven, like somehow join a bank or become an analyst. And, I was like, well, I'm personally not intrinsically driven by money. And I was like, I don't know that I'm going to feel passionate about that. Or, everyone's like, go to McKinsey, go to McKinsey, go to McKinsey. You'll get a lot of experience. It's great training. And then, sort of move on from there. I didn't even know what McKinsey was, to tell you the truth. And I was like, okay, just go to McKinsey. That interview
That's
process
how I
was,
fell into recruitment. I had no clue what it was.
I don't
Let's
know.
just go into recruitment. Okay, I don't know what it
Yeah,
is, but
yeah. And then you're in it and you're like, oh, it's a lot more involved. That's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
yeah, 45 years later, I'm still here. So it's
Well, you must be doing something right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
what was that surprised you the most about leaving medicine and going into industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think well, McKinsey is sort of this like stepping stone and then going into industry. What I think maybe surprised me most about industry, I mean, everyone in academic medicine, I mean, it's like the best and the brightest, and I mean, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant people. What I didn't realize is that in industry, there are also really brilliant people. I mean, really top tier intellects, people who have spent a lot of time in academic medicine. I don't know why. And I think a lot of people assume, like, oh, well, they must need doctors. And it's like, well, no, there are a lot of doctors. I mean, everyone there has a PhD, everyone has, or an M. And I think it's really important. I think especially having the history of patient contact, understand how diseases are treated, how the medical system works, how you fit in that. You can't introduce new therapies or new innovation without understanding how it will eventually be applied,
Yeah,
because then you're creating a solution for a problem that doesn't exist.
yeah,
So I think it's pretty important. But I think that's what surprised me the most. One, how little I knew about it. I mean, we don't learn anything really about the process of drug development. What are the different roles? How do they come together? And so that was just an entirely new learning experience. And, learning the language, learning the acronyms, learning the steps in drug development. What does it take? That was all quite new. So I was going into something and having to learn, a whole new approach. It's not just come up with a drug and test it and then, sell it.
yeah.
Yeah. As it turns out, there.
So what did you do after McKinsey, and what did you take with you that continued you in your journey?
Yeah. Well, I think there's aspects. I feel incredibly fortunate to have played a role in, different aspects of this industry. One, in medicine, like having the background as a physician, we just learn so much, especially as a radiologist. I like to say, I mean, when you train as a radiologist, your job is to become encyclopedic. You are kind of the last stop diagnostically, other than pathology, perhaps. So you need to be able to recognize everything. And that has really helped. Doing a PhD and understanding research and what it takes, and, how do you approach a scientific question? How do you develop a hypothesis? How do you test it? That's been incredibly important. When I went to McKinsey, that was definitely a huge culture shock. Staying up at all hours of the night to work on PowerPoints, I thought was ludicrous. I was like, nobody's dying. Nobody's dying of PowerPoint deficit.
Yeah,
I was just like, this is the most ridiculous thing. I remember the first project I was on, someone sitting me down and saying, lines have to be 1.5 thickness. This and I was like, who cares?
who cares about this?
Who cares? I mean, this is not important. Until finally someone said to me, they were like, you know what? As consultants, this is our output. This is our output. It better be good. And I was like, maybe I need to shut up and, instead of having these preconceived notions of what I think should be important, like actually try to learn, what's important. And so I'd say from McKinsey, I learned a lot about industry. You have the chance to work with a lot of different companies. And I learned, even though I didn't want to, that how you present your material, how you tell your story, um, is critically important. Where you gather information, what is the information that you need to fold in? I mean, those are good tools to have in the toolkit as you move forward. And so, like I'd say, through gritted teeth, it was sort of shoved down my throat. I finally learned it. I'm grateful for that.
That would have been a bit like your business school education,
Totally.
right? So rather than going to business school, you kind of did a hands-on business apprenticeship in the best possible way before then
Yeah.
going on to industry.
Well, so and the other thing is, so McKinsey hires typically, business school graduates, but they do hire a few like non-typical atraditional roles, like physicians, PhDs, people who have no business background. And for those people, and I think the New York office probably has the most of these individuals, but they take everyone who has the same start date from around the world and put them all in one place, 2 weeks. And they bring in professors from Harvard Business School, NCED, University of Chicago.
Wow. Okay.
You have to learn it very quickly.
Wow.
So, and then, we're going to make sure you know this first so that you can jump in and start doing work. So I did my 2 years at McKinsey. I was like, I'm out. And then, yeah, and then I was like, I really, I want to join a company, but I didn't know exactly where to go. I have a son, and a custody agreement with his father that dictated they stay in New York. So I did not have geographic flexibility. There's not a lot of biotech in New York. I had to stay in New York. So I either had to join a company in New York or join a company that allowed me to work remotely, had a New York office. And I was fortunate enough, I actually met my future boss, Ron Palaki, at Regenx Bio. And I went to Regenx Bio first and I joined the commercial team, which is maybe not an obvious extension, but Ron, I just loved. I still love. He was a huge supporter and he took me on, kind of with no industry experience. So I joined Regenx Bio on the commercial team, and that was really an incredible opportunity, I'd say. We were doing, early stage analysis, understanding the commercial landscape of various gene therapy opportunities. And this was in 2018. I mean, it was really kind of the heyday of gene therapy. So I get to jump into this brand new therapy that's fascinating. The idea that you could deliver DNA in order to replace, what some people don't have, who suffer from genetic conditions was really compelling. And we spent a lot of time thinking through what are the different diseases that you can potentially treat with gene therapy. And while I was there, I think being on the commercial team was not obvious, but it was a chance for me to learn. But I really got along quite well with the people in the R&D team and people in clinical development because that was my background. And I just like hanging out with them. So whenever I went down to Rockville, you know, there were scientists who joined who had very strong neuroscience backgrounds. So I would just hang out with them and we'd like talk about the research or talk about cool papers, or I'd say, what do you think about this? And it turned into this, how do we collaborate and start to apply different aspects of drug development? What's the commercial potential? What's the, like, scientifically, will this work? What does the clinical development path look like? And what we ended up doing was creating these cross-functional teams, I think just kind of naturally, because I think we just like getting together, over coffee or over lunch and talking about these things. Um, and that really became an opportunity to develop a cross-functional approach, different members of different teams thinking about one problem from different angles. And we became quite efficient at evaluating different opportunities that maybe were presented to us or we were thinking through. And that was really cool. It's a very cool opportunity. And I'm very grateful for that.
And do you think, in a way, that that was your kind of first foray or your first way of thinking about that kind of CEO route down the road, or was that not even in your mind at this time?
It's funny when I interviewed at Expire, I forget who I interviewed with, but I think they asked me, no, I think Ken Mills, who I love, I adore Ken. I think he was like, where do you want to be in 10 years? I was like, well, I want to be in your seat. I was like, don't want to take your job, but I want to be you. And he was like, it's pretty brazen.
Yeah, that's the way to do it, isn't it? It's like, what do you want? Well, I want the top job.
This is why we're doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't come here just to play. I want the top job. So
Exactly. That's kind of what I said. He was like, this is my interview for my first job.
at the moment, could you go to the filing department and we'll talk about it afterwards?
Here. Learn something. Oh, yeah. That's why, yeah, no, it's meant.
So you did the commercial side. So that would have been a lot of on the fundraising, storytelling, building that sort of stuff out. 'Cause you got a lot of those skills.
Yeah, Yeah, understanding and learning, sort of how do you build a commercial team? How do you analyze the market potential? What does that look like? What does it take? That was all new to me, and I really, by having to sit in the seat and do it, you learn, how to do those analyses. How to interview physicians, how to understand the competitive landscape, the prescribing potential. Is there a place for this in the market? What are the risks? What's the upside? Things like that.
And obviously, your role as a CEO, apart from steering the ship as well, it is that being out there bringing in the money and that fundraising, right? So,
Yeah.
what have you learned about telling a scientific story that resonates with investors?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you have to understand the market. And by understanding the market, it's like one understanding for investors, they want to know, is this revenue generating? Like, what is the value proposition? But I think deeper than that, you really have to understand the patient population. I mean, everything has to be grounded in the patients. You have to know who you're serving. And are you making their lives better and not just creating a drug to sell or make money? I mean, fundamentally, you want to impact people's lives and change the course of therapies, people who are suffering from diseases. I mean, we'll never stop innovating. We'll never stop bringing new drugs, until everyone lives forever and ever. And that's not going to happen. So I think there's that. Like first really like what are the fundamentals and then how do you create a story out of that?
What difference have you noticed um, through your career in women's approach to fundraising as opposed to men's approach to fundraising?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I haven't been on the other side of the table. I haven't been an investor. So I can't tell you that, men typically, you know, propose things this way and women propose things that way. I don't know. I'm reluctant to say and group all women together and group all men together. I think we wade into murky territory where we become, rather than descriptive, we become prescriptive. If
Yep.
we say women are, you know, better nurturers and they don't self advocate, like there are a lot of women who are great nurturers, there are a lot of men who are great nurturers. There are some women who may not be great at advocating, and some men also. And I think you kind of have to put that behind you and just say, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for patients. I mean, I believe in this, and let me tell you why I believe in this. I know that I've spent more time, digging in, understanding this space. Let me help you understand what I see.
Yeah, I mean, I think the area is that the women are generally very good storytellers. So it's the telling of the story, not just the science, right? But
Mhm.
the funding for women does still seem to be less. It's
This is
it's not going in that direction as it should.
Yeah, there are plenty of penguins also. I mean, I've been on fundraising calls, I won't name any names, but I got a call once with someone who said, I always take calls with women founders because their companies are always undervalued and I get a good deal. I was like, you should say that those are the thoughts you keep inside your head. You should say that out loud. I
Yeah,
was like, well, I'm not looking to like tell you the story of how I'm going to undervalue myself, but thank you for
yeah. But thank you for
sharing.
pointing that out.
Thank you. It's like,
Yeah, it's a change. So you're now. I want to talk a little bit about Brenrig.
Brennick.
Brenig.
Yes.
So I want to talk a little bit about Brenig. You've been there just a couple of months now, right?
Yeah, just
I
about a
lose
month. It's a
track.
little
Yeah.
over a month.
So what's that been like, jumping into that hot seat?
I mean, I cannot tell you how fortunate I am and how lucky I am. This is for me just the best possible job and the best company. So, one, CNS, neuroscience based. I mean, this is what I'm passionate about. I love. I could talk to you about the brain all day long.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
you.
it's
You're at home there now, right?
yeah, I am totally at home. I mean, when this opportunity came up, so I joined an existing team, small team, and but we have a lot of people who um, around the world who support Brenig. Drug already in the clinic, lead program already in the clinic, incredible investor base. I mean, the very best of the best, and they are so supportive. It makes such a big difference to walk into a company where funds have been raised, drugs are excellent. They came from the drugs were created in a subsidiary called Expert Systems. I actually just yesterday, the day before, I flew back. I was in San Diego. I went and sat down with them to try to understand. There's this really incredible AI machine learning platform that was used to develop and optimize these drugs. So a lot of computational chemistry went into them to really create best in class drugs. Drugs that get into the brain, have the best PK profile, best target engagement. I mean, I could talk to you all day about why these really are the best drugs. So I'm walking into a company that has potential best in class drugs already in the clinic, really looking good. I am working with the brightest people. I mean, really, really talented. Tan Dam is our CMO. She has deep expertise in this area. I mean, she knows how to get things done. Our CFO, Ideen Mordasti, he is just such a wonderful person to work with and so collaborative. And jumping into something that already exists, like you just don't know who you're going to be working with, but off the bat, highly collaborative. We work so well together, and I just think I'm extraordinarily optimistic about pushing these programs forward. It's just we have so much support behind us, and so many people working so hard to make sure everything goes smoothly. So it's really, I mean, it's the best opportunity in the world.
And what about you mentioned that you've gone into a company that's already established, it's
Mhm.
got things happening. How do you put your mark as to what the culture of the company is by coming in at that point? Or did you feel you didn't have to? How do you make your mark?
Yeah. It's interesting. Prior to this, I was working with a smaller fund and starting companies, spinning assets out of universities. And so I was doing this, multiple companies at a time. And that's quite interesting when you're doing things in parallel because you think and you start things from the ground up. You know, how am I being intentional about creating a culture? What's the role that I play? And, on the one hand, I think lead by example, but sometimes culture develops on its own. I started two companies at once and hired people in different cities. One was in Boston, one was in New York. And the two companies kind of felt different. I mean, they had, somewhat different cultures, which is good. It's kind of what you need. I think for me, one is integrity is incredibly important. We need to be supportive, highly, highly, highly collaborative. Everyone should be willing to jump in, make sure things move. I mean, no one's sitting there saying that's not my job. You can't do that in a small company. I like to say, these small companies, I was like CEO, chief communication officer, chief legal officer, head of taking out the trash, like whatever it takes.
Chief tea maker.
Chief tea maker, I mean, head of finance, and
What needs to be, what hat shall I wear today? It's kind of that, isn't it, really?
yeah, and I think also, if you lead from a place of compassion, I mean, I think understanding that this work is incredibly important and people have families at home, people have other priorities. I mean, what we're doing is certainly a priority. It's what they've decided to dedicate their life to. Let's not forget that we're not working just in an echo chamber. We're working within an entire system. And so, if someone has a sick kid, I'm like, don't even think twice. Take care of your sick kid. The work is going to be here tomorrow or whenever you're back. We'll figure it out. And when you're here, we're going to move pretty quickly.
And that's it, isn't it? If you're here, you're here. If you can't be for whatever reason, I completely understand.
Cool.
But
Yeah,
but don't be sort of half-hearted. Talking about family, I do want to touch on. I know that you had your son whilst you were at medical school, right?
I do.
And how was that being a mother during medical school? How do you feel that shaped your leadership path and your career path?
Yeah. No, it's a great question, and I actually love talking about this because I think people don't talk about their personal lives, and I think it's a pretty big blind spot. So I started medical school. I was married. I when I started, I really wanted to be a neurosurgeon. There was a neurosurgeon there who used to let me follow him around, and I really thought, this is definitely my calling. This is what I want to do. But neurosurgery residency is quite long and pretty involved. And the only time you have off in medical school is the summer between your first and second year. So I said to my husband at the time, I was like, and he was a little bit older than me. I said, we could have a baby now, or we could wait 11 years. Like, do you want to do? He was like, um, uh, now, I guess.
As good a time as any.
Sure. I think whether it's for better or worse, I think I kind of get through life just not knowing that I can't do things. It I never grew up thinking women can't do this. I just didn't grow up in that environment, so I never think that there's nothing I can't do. So I was like, okay, well, if I could get pregnant in September or October and have the baby in June or July, it was meant to be. If that doesn't happen, it wasn't meant to be. We'll wait 11 years. I was young. I mean, if someone sneezes, you get pregnant. So anyway, so I was pregnant my first year of medical school, which was interesting because, we were studying embryology, which has kind of tracked my pregnancy, which was terrifying. But I was
Yeah, there's a part where that's like too much information, right?
too much information, right? There are pictures I did not need to see. Uh, but, and then my son decided to make his debut the morning of our very last exam,
Oh,
June 7th, 2007. So I had exams all that week. He came a little bit early. I said, baby, please hold out until after we're done. And almost made it. But I woke up at 5 o'clock that morning to finish cramming for my exam. And I was like, wait, something's not right here. And a couple hours later, Jasper made his debut into the world.
so it wasn't a long labour. You couldn't have just sort of sat through that. I was in labour with my daughter for like 43 hours. I probably could have sat 3 exams during that period of time, but obviously he was keen to make an appearance quickly.
He was coming up. And he was born on my mom's birthday. So I told my mom,
Oh,
I was like, you know what, I've been very busy. I forgot to put a card in the mail, but I'm going to give you your first grandchild. So,
yeah.
yeah, so he came out on grandma's birthday.
So,
So,
so yeah, carry on.
so then, so I have this little baby at home, and truthfully, it's challenging. It's really hard. I mean, whether you're a man or a woman, small children, they're they're awake all night long. I did not sleep much. When you're young, you don't need to sleep, so it's okay. And it really forces you to prioritize, and get things done when you can. I would read to him from my medical textbooks. I like to say I hope I got a 2-for-1 education. He's now actually in college, and it turns out that's not quite true. But um, it was hard, but I love kids. I love being a mom. My time with him was like really my most joyful moments. It was really, really challenging. So challenging that it really affected my marriage, and unfortunately my marriage didn't work out. And so it's actually why I got a PhD after my third year of medical school. And my son's father decided to move back to England, where he's from. And I, had a 2-year-old by myself. And so I actually dropped out of medical school. It took a leave to do research because I really needed some flexibility. There was no way I could go back and have all of those demands. I had no money. It was pretty challenging, and I chose a lab. I chose a lab that we did because the majority of the work was actually like computer science based. So the majority of the analysis was done on the computer. That said, there were many Saturday mornings where I brought him to the lab and plopped him in front of a computer, and that's where he watched cartoons. So he was a constant addition in the lab. But that really allowed me to be a mom, do the work during the day. I was not in the lab at 11 o'clock at night. I had to pick him up from daycare. We had to go home. I would run scripts that would run overnight, and I could access from home. And so I'd start running scripts at midnight. They'd be done by 7. We get up. So I mean, there was a lot of figuring things out. I mean, there's no playbook for this, but there's no playbook for anyone. I mean, anyone who has a career and children, you're constantly figuring things out.
But isn't that a great way for leadership, though? Because I don't think there's any better education path to leadership than motherhood. Because
Absolutely.
there is so, anything that you can think of that you're likely to come across in as a leader in a business,
Yeah.
you've done. Try negotiating with an 18-month-year-old, and you have to find skills you had no idea that you had. So
I've done a ton of negotiations. No one stacks up to the terrorist that is a 2.5-year-old. I mean, talk about learning how to negotiate. Yeah, try to get your kid to put on their pants when you want them to.
or not to go to a very formal afternoon tea dressed as, Spider-Man or
Yeah,
Cinderella.
right. I mean, you have to figure out what's important and focus on that. And all of the other stuff you just have to let go.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So what advice do you have for women coming into the STEM space right now? It's pretty challenging for people entering. There's a lot of people, I don't know if I should enter, I don't know what I should do. You've run a whole gauntlet there. What would your advice be to somebody who really doesn't quite know what to do right now?
Yeah, I think so. The question of women in STEM, I think, you know, look, I was very fortunate to grow up with a mother who, was one of the first professors in medicine. I mean, she was really a trailblazer. But I would say in our house, we never discussed, the role of being a woman. My brother joined the math team, I joined the math team. I just didn't know that there were barriers. And I think that's extraordinarily compelling. And looking back, I think, people say, just have this mindset, but it's hard to force yourself to have that mindset. But it is a mindset. You have to believe that you can do anything. I mean, there should not be, oh, this is a space for men and it's going to be hard for women in this space. It's not true. There are women's brains don't work differently. I mean, I'm far more of a math person, and a lot of other women are. A couple of years ago, I looked up statistics because I was trying to, intentionally hire women and have a diverse team. And I looked up statistics. Actually, over 50%, I think it was 52% of science undergraduate degrees go to women. Just under 50% PhD science PhDs go to women, about 48% at the time. It's not true that there are not women in STEM. I think the problem is there are not leaders in these careers, in biotech, department chairs, all of these things. I actually looked up because, I was like, well, okay, if a common truth, which I don't believe to be true, but if a common truth is, you know, boys are better at math and science and girls are better at humanities, I was like, okay, there are not that many math department chairs who are women. Surely that must mean that there are a lot of English department chairs across the country who are women. No, less than 50%.
Right.
It's not a STEM issue. It's an access for women to gain those positions. You know, I don't, if I had an answer for how to change all of this systemically, not just in the sciences, but, in every aspect of our career, I mean, I would be the most productive person. I think like you just have to keep going. The other advice I give women is you have to get degrees. Unfortunately, you have to outperform everyone else because no one, you're not going to walk into a room and everyone's going to assume that you're the smartest person in the room. They're going to assume that the guy that you walked in with is the smartest person in the room. If you walk in, they assume you're in some sort of traditionally female, those are my coworkers, um, you know, credentials. People know they take you seriously. I wish I could say that they just automatically take you seriously and they should take you seriously, and that's just not always the case. So if you want to be taken seriously, get some letters behind your name.
Yeah, and I also think, I mean, I am a firm believer in how you're raised as to what you believe genuinely in your mind you believe you can do, or
Mhm.
that those barriers you just ignore them, or actually aren't even aware of them in
Yeah.
some instances. But that's really hard if people haven't had that upbringing. So
Yeah.
where would you think somebody could get that? Because you can't just will it, you can't just say, well, I'm not going to take any notice of what I believe or what appears to be hitting me in the face as barriers. But I'm
Yeah.
just not going to take any notice of it, because that's really, it's not possible for people to do that.
Yeah. I think mentorship is huge. Having people you can see and can talk to, but I think also just people you notice. I mean, along the way, when I've come across companies or I see people in leadership positions, particularly women, I actually just Google them. I'm like, how did they get to where they are? What are they doing? What do I need to do that? How do I need to get where they are? What was their path? I've been fortunate enough to have really great both female and male mentors. In medical school, my advisor, Marianne Hopkins, oh my God, she is phenomenal. She's this incredible surgeon. Um, and she was really like one of these people who's like, you can do it. What's stopping you? And she asked me once to come and present at a conference on some, sort of surgical learning tool. And she's like, Megan, it's in Orlando. You can bring your son. I think it'll be great. It's like, but Marianne, I've never used this before. And she's like, I'm sure you'll figure it out. So, I mean, you need those people who just tell you to stop doubting yourself, like tell you, like, and just say, you're going to figure this out. Do it.
Knowing that somebody else believes in you
Yeah.
is enough to give you enough to believe in yourself, when it's very
Yeah.
easy to not believe in yourself. Just having that person in your corner that says, I believe in you, and somebody you respect, obviously, not
Well,
just some
okay.
random person.
Somebody you respect. I'll tell you. So Eric Aguiar recruited me to Bridge Bio, and I came on and was the head of strategy and transactions, and it was a business development role. And he was really instrumental in getting me there. And he was a phenomenal mentor, phenomenal, phenomenal. And you know, I'm scared every time I go into something new that I haven't done before. I mean, everyone should be scared. If you're not scared,
There's
if you have
something
no
wrong.
right, if you have no level of humility, then you have no level of curiosity either. If you walk into something saying I already know everything, you're not going to learn and you're going to be ineffective. But I was scared. And, I said to him, I was like, okay, I'm really excited to join this fantastic company, but have I mentioned I've never done this before? And Eric was like, first of all, I'm sure you'll figure it out. You're smart. And he goes, and you have the entire Aisling team at your disposal. And I became really good friends with the analysts. He goes, you know what? Before every call them and run things by them. If you need to run an email by them, run it by them. If you have questions, they are going to help you. So it's a mindset, someone telling you that you can do things, but also someone providing resources that, when you say, I don't know this, they say, well, this is how you're going to
Here's
figure
where
it
you
out.
can find it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I say to everyone, I'm like, when you're in a new role, go find your safe person. Find the safe person that you can ask all the stupid questions. Because if you're not asking the questions, you don't know. Maybe be a little bit careful about asking like your CEO or the boss the stupid
Yeah.
questions.
Just put that stupid question out there. Ignore it. Don't add it to my resume.
Yes, I mean, there are no stupid questions. That's not true. There are some stupid questions, but you need to person. I'm full of stupid questions. Go find the person you can ask who can help you figure it out. Understand what you don't know. Don't pretend like you do, but write down what you don't know. If you're on a call with a team and they're talking about something or an acronym you don't know, make a note of it and go look it up or go ask somebody. Go figure it out.
So what's the future look like for Brenig and you?
It's going to be great. So
So exciting.
it's great. Look, so we have two programs, a LRRK2 inhibitor for Parkinson's disease and an NLRP3 inhibitor, Parkinson's and other indications. So we're figuring that out. So the NLRP3 inhibitor is entering clinical trials weeks away. So we're about to have two programs in the clinic. We have this incredible support from our investors, making sure, we're well supported, we're well capitalized. We're planning to kick off fundraising 2026, raise a Series B that will enable phase 2 clinical trials. So all the investors out there watching, I'm coming for you. And,
Yeah, and she
um,
means it.
I mean it. We do have the best drugs, and I'll sit down with tell them why. We're going to advance these drugs. We're going to do proof of
Excellent.
concept trials. We're going to show that they work. I mean, the goal is
So you're going to
really
cure Parkinson's.
this is the idea. That is what we're moving towards. Yeah, we're going to develop really great therapies. We're going to make a really big difference in how we
Fantastic.
modify the course of disease. It's going to be great.
Excellent. Well, I've listen. Just the amount of time I've spent with you today, I have zero doubt that's exactly what you're going to be behind making sure happens. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been lovely meeting your dogs and hearing your story, even with the workmen and their stuff as well. I wish you every success at Brenig. I know it's going to be amazing, and I look forward to seeing what happens next.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you for inviting me on this podcast. It's wonderful what you're doing. I love, love, love supporting the women community, getting voices out there. I think it's so important and I really
Bless you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me for this episode of She Leads Biotech. If today's story inspired you, subscribe, follow, and comment, because when one woman's voice is heard, many more find theirs. Until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, and keep leading.